Josh, glad you're here. All right, cool. Let's party. Share screen. So this is going to play into. I had a good conversation with Johans last week, and he's talked about it called skill stacking. I've talked about it in conversations about being like a Renaissance person and just stacking multiple skills. So as you guys saw my question in the group last week in the business thing, I asked like about the social media stuff. I have been stacking skills since I left the gym, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago. I got my massage license. I've gotten really good at photography, videography, getting good in Canva, understanding marketing and copywriting. One, because it interests me, but that's also where society is as far as like attention, right? When you're building a business, where's people's attention? How can we get attention? How can we captivate our audience with good storytelling and then get them to invest in our services? So, and now that's put me in a position to where we are opening this clinic where I will be handling 2 Instagram accounts, creating content for 2 Instagram accounts, handling the marketing, the website, the copywriting. I don't have a marketing degree. So this guy is not the guy I'm going into business with, the one that's fronting the money. He is paying me to be the he fired his marketing team. And he's investing in me to do those things. And when I learned the concept of a web of goals, this is how I got to where I am today. And I'll give you the resources where I learned it from at the end. But for now, yeah, let's start. There's not 58 slides, don't worry. Okay, here we go. And if you have a question, go ahead, just raise your hand and we'll just address it. Sometimes once I get going, if you have a question, just raise your hand and we can stop. All right, so the goal of today is to help you develop a better strategy in the pursuit of your goals. If we look at traditional goal setting, it's typically one-dimensional, right? You're at point A, we're going to go to point B, and it draws a straight line. Just follow this line and you'll get from here to there, and that's it. But life doesn't work like that, right? Life goals are seldom one dimension, right? Every action has a side effect. And when we focus on a goal, side effects are typically ignored. So when we look at strength training, getting stronger or getting to a high level of strength in powerlifting, strength is the goal, but what most lifters don't talk about is the side effects from pursuing that goal of getting stronger. The pain, the training, the relationship stress, the mental health stress. You lose friends when you compete. The financial cost of competing in a sport where you don't win anything. People typically ignore those effects or they don't talk about them. What this is a big take-home message is you can never just do one thing. You can't just get stronger. There's other aspects of getting strong that are involved with that, right? Our diet has to be on point, our sleep has to be on point, our mental health needs to be on point, technique, training, programming, you name it. So here's another example is building a career, right? Your goal is to build your career, but side effects that people typically ignore is they become completely dependent on one job. Their identity revolves around that job, which we've talked a lot about. Right, identity lately, and we can see it in the Discord. Dave's not here, but Dave's, he's at a crossroads with, the firefighting thing. And I was the same way when I was a strength coach coming up. My identity was I was a strength coach and I was a powerlifter. Those were my identities. But I ignored those side effects. Alienation from your family, failing health and stress, right? So you get these guys who go after these corporate jobs, working 70-hour weeks. They lose relationships with their wife, their kids, their significant other. They have a huge amount of stress, which affects their health, right? So did we actually achieve our goal? Maybe, but by the time that goal is actually reached, the strategy of going from point A to point B has caused so much collateral damage that the work's not actually done because we have to fix the damage that pursuing that goal did. So we need a better goal setting strategy. So let's look at something, a two-dimensional problem, right? A work-life balance. So a work-life balance, I think, doesn't exist. We create balance in our life, and when things are off balance, it's up to us to take a step back to figure out where that unbalance is coming. We've talked about that with like the 4 buckets, right? If you put all your rocks into the physical bucket but ignore relationships, recovery, and business, well, those things will become unbalanced. So when it comes to work-life balance, decide what you want your life to look like and what that balance looks like, and then we start to set our goals. So there's 2 strategies, right? So if we do our point A to point B strategy, that's strategy 1, we just work towards work. But strategy 2, we work towards work and life, and that gets us towards that work-life balance, right? That is what this web of goals strategy helps us do. It's a strategy 2. Strategy 1 is what is called a heterotelic type strategy. This comes from philosophy. It just means different goals. It's finite behavior. It's misdirected behavior, and it works against us. As you can see from, if we just focus on our career as the only goal, it's going to have other effects, right? Because those goals should also be building a healthy relationship with our family. It should be taking care of our health and wellness. So that's where strategy 2 comes in. Homeotelic, which means same goal. This strategy is going to move us closer to both goals. To me, this is a better strategy. Most problems in our society are solved with the heterotelic strategy, right? So if we think of disease, right, it's just they focus on the symptoms. Hey, take this pill, but they don't actually address everything, right? Think of weight loss, and I'm going to bring up some charts that I showed in a previous discussion. We got to look at the entire problem. Even the financial crisis, like they'll look at one single issue and trying to fix that, but the shit still crumbles. So this right here is the map of the obesity epidemic and all of the things that are involved with the obesity epidemic. It can be reduced down to social psychology, individual psychology, physical activity, activity environment, physiology, food consumption, food production. So as a coach, if we're trying to help someone lose weight, what do they typically say? Oh, just eat better and train. We have to, as coaches, have to look at all of these factors when working with a client. So if we just looked at individual physical activity, you can see there's all of these other factors that we need to address, right? This would be taking a strategy that solves multiple problems with one strategy. So if we just did point A to point B of improving physical activity, but don't address any of these other things on the screen, it's short-sighted. And then we typically fail to reach our goals, or there's adverse side effects, right? So kind of what I was just saying, a good strategy solves multiple problems at the same time. And when it comes to problem solving, I think it's really important for us to look at problems as small, be slow, and diversified. It goes against what our society has taught us to be: think big, be fast, and just focus on one thing. Think of careers. I've talked about it before. By being a specialist, you're just hyper focused on that career and being really good at one thing. And then what happens? Well, the pandemic comes and you're out of a job and you don't have any other skills, right? This helps us remain on top of the situation. This allows us to pivot when shit hits the fan. And something I try to remind myself is, like, don't engage in things that are beyond my comprehension. There's so much going on in the world that you can't focus on everything. Like, even if you look at like the climate of the way the world is right now, like, you only have so much energy to give and put into things. And if you try to focus on everything, like, it would just, it's you can't comprehend that, right? So if it's beyond your comprehension, you can either work to try and comprehend it. And then if it's beyond your control, don't engage in that, right? And that's something a lot, especially me, like I get caught up in things I can't control. And I can't speak for everybody else, but this is something a lot of people I work with, like, they focus on, it's did it happen to you or is it happening for you, right? When it happens for you, it's in your control. When you say it happened to you, you give that control to somebody else, right? So when we look at problems, look as it, find out how we can control it, keep the problem small, keep them slow and diversified. Play the long game with what we're trying to do. And something I forgot who I was talking to about this a couple of weeks ago, but I think I see this with a lot of new people that come into the group that, oh, I'm going to join Matt 1612 and I'm going to be just like Matt, and like they end up falling off the page and not realizing like Matt's played the long game, right? He's learned all these skills. We don't get what Matt has overnight. So we have to play the long game, and what allows us to play the long game is having a strategy that solves multiple problems at the same time. So before we get into the web of goals, I want to look at what's called effect mapping. So the definition of a goal is the end toward which effort is directed. And I want you to keep that in mind. I'm going to repeat it a couple more times. A goal is the end towards which effort is directed. We have both positive and negative effort, right? So any action or behavior has a number of positive or negative side effects. So here at the end, we have our goal. Anything above this line is a positive effect. Anything below it is a negative effect, right? And if we add up, so these are our choices. These are decisions that we make. So this decision is a positive effect towards our goal, and this is like a secondary effect from that decision. You can have a positive effect, but you can also have like some negative consequences from it. Now, when we add up all these side effects, if it doesn't create a positive bias, then the entire goal structure needs to be reevaluated. So takeaways from the effect mapping. We need to consider the sum total of all the effects of your actions. Specific actions lead to specific outcomes. Therefore, all effects can be considered goals. Remember, goal is just the end where we direct our effort. So whether you actually want to achieve those goals or not, your actions lead to specific outcomes. They lead to specific effects. So you might be doing things based on your actions, and you are getting these goals because that's the end result of your efforts. And when we have a strong positive goal, right? So we have all these positive, but if we have small negative goals, we start to get friction. And that's where we start to get, it conflicts with what we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. So I had a client today, she just had a breakup, with her significant other, and it's leading her into making impulsive decisions. She knows she doesn't want to make them, yet she still makes them. Even while she's making them, she's like, why am I doing this? And this is leading her to specific outcomes and taking her down a different path than what she wants to do. We had this conversation today, like those are goals. This is where your efforts being directed. So if your goal isn't to become a person who's impulsive and makes decisions that are contradicting who you want to become, we then have to reevaluate the entire goal structure, right? We have to get back to what do we want, why do we want it, and who do we need to become in order to achieve it? We need synergy, right? We don't need conflict if we want to achieve our goals. Without synergy, negative effects often do cancel out positive effects, or the effects will be scattered, right? It's where we see people, they have like one good day and then a couple bad days, or they eat really well during the week and then they blow it on the weekend, right? It usually cancels out those positive effects. And by having synergy, it'll allow us to concentrate on the effects or the goals. It'll allow us to concentrate where we direct our effort. So the web of goals. This strategy, it aims to solve problems proactively by creating solutions that could be part of a wider strategy in the future, right? So learning copywriting, learning how to edit video, learning coding, learning how to cook, right? These can be part of a wider strategy for the future, playing that long game. Learning how to take control of your breath, learning how your body moves. This is so we can apply these things in the future. These are solutions for the future. In other words, the strategy will maximize the opportunities and changes according to which opportunities bear fruit. So back to when I left the spot the gym here in Columbus. I moved to Atlanta to train NFL players, and then moved back to Cleveland to get my massage therapy license. From there, I bounced around from gyms to clinics. If we didn't vibe, I was out, right? I was looking for these, I was changing, I was evolving, I was adapting. And then when the pandemic hit, I actually closed my business in Cleveland and moved to Columbus because I thought the opportunities were better down there. And how I got in the position I am today is that I emailed the guy who's financing this whole project. We just met for lunch. But then when I went over, like, I got my massage therapy license. I've been doing all this with content and marketing and learning these skills. An opportunity presented itself, right? And it's going to bear fruit. It's taken my life, it's changed, but I've acquired all these goals or these skills or strategies. So when the opportunity did appear, I wasn't in a position to say no, right? And I talked to the Johans about that. Is you want to put yourself in a position so you can always say yes, but have the option to say no. A lot of us are put into positions where we're not ready for things. You're like, damn, if I only would have done X, Y, or Z, or if I would have just worked harder here. And when the opportunity presents yourself, you want to be able to say, fuck yeah, man, or no, I'm out, even though knowing you could full well do that. My buddy who owns Live Large, the clothing company, he said, I'm the luckiest man in the world. But I was just there when the opportunity presented itself, that I could seize that opportunity. So that's what it's about, stacking skills and acquiring all these new things. So to create this web example, we're going to look at 5 different skill sets. Right? You're going to come up with your own skill sets that you want to get better at. But these are 5 that I think a lot of us can relate to. First one, simple living. Second is career. Third is health. Fourth is financial independence. And 5th is hobbies. Now, for each of these skill sets, you want to come up with 3 goals or 3 focuses for them. And I'll explain why here in a minute. Okay, so for simple living, we'd have being frugal, saving our money, having less clutter. When it comes to training, less clutter. And what I mean by that is like doing body weight workouts or having just a kettlebell. I don't need a complete Olympic set. I don't need expensive plates. I don't need a rack. I don't need all this stuff. I can just have a simple kettlebell and that'll take care of my training. Working on our health and cooking. Financial independence, being frugal, saving money and investing. Career, savings, less clutter. What I mean by less clutter when it comes to career is you're focused and totally engaged in what you're doing, not working to spend money on things. Also resume building, writing skills, and then hobbies, writing, networking, and cooking. And now we get a web of goals. So what happens, the importance of having 3 is that if one of these fails, the structure stays intact. So it's called tensegrity. We see this in buildings, and we're seeing it a lot in the movement aspect of how the body is built. The 3D structure remains the same. So if I lose cooking, right, I can still fall back on all of these other things that I'm working on. If I just focused on strength training, but none of the other things that are involved with strength training, when I get hurt, what do I have to fall back on? All right. So the web's interconnected. I like to look at each shape representing a distinct activity or skill set. So like hobbies is a skill set, your career is a skill set, and then within them are the skills you want to get better at. So as I was saying, if one of these goals fails, the structure will pull together and it refocuses the remaining goals without bringing down the entire web. All right. Another way to say this is if one of the goals is pushed away, the other goals will instantly pull your life into a slightly different direction. Again, using me as the example, right? The gym that failed, right? Got my massage license, great. Became a movement therapist, great. The pandemic hit, great. Moved down to Columbus, talked to a chiropractor I knew, worked there. That relationship didn't work how we panned out, cool. And you just keep putting yourself in positions till you're where you want to be. Here's the thing where people miss. All goals should be of equal importance because one should not dominate the other, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket because if that basket, where all the eggs break in that basket, you're out of eggs, right? Having that single goal will make you vulnerable because plans will have to be altered radically or even rewritten completely if the goal fails. Right? And we see this a lot. Um, another way to look at this is a process-oriented strategy. Fall in love with the process, not the goal. Too many of us fixate on the goal, but we forget it's the process is where we grow, it's where we change. So if we look on a meta level, a process-oriented strategy is aimed at living. It's aimed at just living with the goals being accomplished as side effects. It's developing the habits and the skills in falling in love with the process. The goals are just a side effect. And I use this with weight loss a lot. Like, don't make weight loss the primary strategy. Fall in love with the process. Fall in love with the lifestyle, right? Learn how to cook, learn how to move, learn how to train, learn how your body works. And the weight loss will be a byproduct or the goal of making those decisions, of building those skill sets, right? Goal oriented is aimed at the goals with living as the side effect. So what I want you to do, everybody that's here watching it, like, make your own web. We'll use the one I used as an example. It'll be difficult at first. You got to sit down and really think about this. I have a whiteboard in my office. I suggest a whiteboard or a piece of paper and just throw everything out on a piece of paper. Put things into categories. See how it starts to make shape. Make your shapes, connect the lines, see where there's overlap. Because when there's overlap, then the structure of the web maintains itself, right? And if you're having trouble, like, just take comfort if your goals are limited in quantity, right? You can find many activities that involve that overlap. A lot of this came from this book right here. This book came out in 2010, Early Retirement Extreme. I highly recommend it. It is a very good book. It will challenge you. If you read it, you'll be like, oh, I see, like, where Nick gets a lot of his thought processes from. This is what sent me down, like, that acquiring skills path, that building this web and, like, putting myself in positions to be able to pivot. There's also a website. The guy is also, he's very active. The author is very active on the website. It's Early Retirement Extreme. He's still posting blogs almost daily. He has a 21-day makeover if you don't want to get the book but want to start to get into this mindset and thought process. This is a very good place to start. So again, remember, fall in love with the process, I guess, is the big thing. All of our actions have effects. There's side effects to those. So take a step back and look at the decisions you're making on a daily basis. Are they having a net positive or a net negative? And if they're having a net negative, we need to ask the question, why are we performing the behavior? Right? So we'll go back to my client with the impulsiveness. I can relate to that because I'm impulsive. And I learned that as a skill when I was in, like, second, third grade, when I was diagnosed with ADHD. But the reason kids are impulsive is because we need the stimulation for our brain, which is why stimulants work good with kids who have ADHD, because the brain needs to be stimulated. So that impulsiveness was almost like a survival mechanism that I've developed, my clients developed over 30 plus years. But when that impulsiveness starts to become negative and not positive, we have to reevaluate things and learn how to harness those types of things. So that's stop share. That's all I got on the web of goals and a different goal setting strategy. I know that was a lot, but it's recorded. I promise. You can go back, rewatch it, get the words down. I recommend the book. I do not recommend reading the book at night because it is heavy on the verbiage. I feel like he could have said a lot less to get his point across, but I really recommend it. So now I want to open it to y'all. We can talk about anything: training, goals, how our weeks were, what are we struggling with. Yeah, the floor is yours, ours. Steven, I'm gonna call on you.
Yeah, that's all right, man. I think, well, I really like, everything that you brought up, because I think right now in my goal setting, I'm super narrow-minded in it. Like, I really know where I want to kind of direct myself, but I'm just not making the moves to go that way. I think a little bit, I'm just kind of scared of stepping out of that comfort zone
Okay.
and really taking that step, right?
Yeah.
For me is the challenge, like leaving my job, starting a business and kind of just putting my back against the wall, trying to get out of that grind for somebody else and just grinding it. I don't care, right? It's gonna be a grind, whatever you do, but it's just doing it all on my own dime that's scary.
Yeah, so that's, we look back at like the effect map, like having your own dime, like that's a negative effect, right? Like, so how can we start to build those positive effects?
And I
So
think
go ahead.
where I'm struggling the most too is I have one of those like all or nothing mentalities. So I have a really hard time with focusing on the fact that, okay, like I can start this, you know, on the weekends, on the evenings, and kind of see where it takes me. I feel like I'm just, if I am gonna do it, I feel more comfortable if I just, all in, man, all
Sure.
in, all my attention is on it, and I feel like it's more real, and I'm more confident in it than if I'm just, it's on the weekends, on the evenings. To me, it doesn't feel that serious.
Sure. And then I
I
think
don't know if it may, yeah.
there's consequences for that too, right? Um, so this will pertain to Sean's comment. Sean said, so you don't have an issue with this method not really having a timeline with it. No, there's still a timeline, right? So this falls back into like the 4 bucket theory, right? The 90 days. So if I want to get better at a skill set, like I have to set actionable things, I have to set deadlines, I have to commit to building that skill. So for if it's writing, it's 100 words a day for 4 weeks, and then it's 300 words a day for 4 weeks, and then my goal is to write 500 words a day at the end of 90 days, right? So then what do I have to do? I have to schedule time to write. You have to learn what skills you need to acquire to get the life that you envision for yourself, right? So Stephen, like, what's the life that you envision for yourself? What are you doing in the next 3 to 5 years? And then yes, we have to kind of work backwards, right? So if I want to be able to have financial freedom for my wife and my kid, to be able to do what we want when we want and not send my kid to public school, what do I have to do now, right? I'm going to build this business, and I need to evolve over the next couple of years. So Stephen, who do you need to evolve into in order for this to become what it needs to be? So who do you need to be right now, and then when it gets to where it wants to go, who do you need to be when it gets there? So for example, like for coaching at our gym, I'm going to set up a coaching development program, get an intern, teach them everything I know with the hopes of replacing me and doing what I'm doing when we open. So then when that gets replaced, then I can move on to the next phase of moving that business forward. Starting your own business is not is a big endeavor. There's a lot of things that we need to do. The biggest thing I think when starting is having proof of concept. Will people pay you for it? And then if they will, get people to get buy-in. How do people buy it? Well, they got to know what you're doing and where you're at. How do we do that? We do that through marketing. So you got to get good at marketing. You got to get good at copywriting. You got to get good at sales. How do I find out where my people are? Well, are they on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever platform, even if it's in person. So for us, we're a brick and mortar. So I got to go to yoga studios, coffee shops, businesses that align with what we're trying to do for the community and start networking, right? So that was one of the things on the web, was get better at networking. I think I recommended this to Sam when he was looking for a new gym. Have coffee with one person every week that's in your community just to build your network. George Bryant talks about it all the time. Like, it's relationships over algorithms. Relationships are where going to get your business to where you want it to go. And that's how I got in the position I am today, was the relationship I had with a guy that we built this relationship 10 years ago. It was just by chance that this shit all fell in. What skills you need to develop and start working on it. Set goals for those skills. Is it marketing? Is it copywriting? What's your business?
So I'll be looking at probably, so I've background basically 10 years in the concrete industry. Did 10 years basically in the trade, 4 years in sales. And now I'm just kind of tired of. I'm just tired of doing it for somebody else. And I kind of figured I found a little niche, something that I could do. Basically, first experience building a business. I don't think it's something that would make it to like multi-billion-dollar. It would be something that would just sustain me and my family. Probably a little bit more money than I'm making right now, but just something that'll, I think, time wise satisfy me more, as well as I'll just feel more accomplished at the end of the day, right? And I'll be in control. So it'd be mobile. It's mobile CNC engraving with specialty floor coatings for concrete.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So then,
it's just like I have the network, I have the sales skills. It's growing a pair and doing it right.
yeah, I mean, what's stopping you? What's preventing you from doing it?
Initial investment, and again, just I'm making pretty good money in sales, so that that comfort, that complacency, I guess that comes with it too, right?
Yeah. So
So that's really what
it's,
it's just,
the comfort crisis, right? Um,
exactly.
here's, if you're comfortable, you've stopped evolving. You, the work never stops. The evolution never stops. We have to constantly grow and change and adapt and change our environments and evolve. And if you're comfortable, you're not evolving. If you're doing, my dad's a perfect example. He's been living the same life for 30 years. To me, he died 30 years ago,
Yeah,
right?
that you say that's the last thing I want, right?
So, how bad do you want what you say you want? What do you want? Why do you want it? And then who do you have to become in order to achieve it? And then start taking steps to become that, right? Become that person. Um, those. So what are the next things you got to do? You got to get people to pay you to fucking do this. So how do you get people to pay you
Yeah.
to do this? You leverage your network. If you see it, like, why not you to do it?
I'm just right now also I'm scared that there's gonna be some sort of conflict of interest that would come up, right? Because my network is my current network that I'm using for sales as well. And I just feel it would create conflict with my current employer. So then that's so for me to do it half, like if I want to do it weekends, evenings, and start promoting it that way, I just feel that my employer would take it the wrong way and then um, force me to be all in.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one, and you're gonna have to make a decision or come up with a plan to. I don't know. I'm always, how can we make this win-win? So Sean, like we were talking about the Instagram social thing, like I just came up with a situation that was win-win for myself and the guy I'm opening this with. So how can you make this a win-win situation for you and your current place of employment or boss or your network? Right? That's how you have to look at it. Like if you have a great idea, like that's great, but let's make this happen. And in order to make it happen, how can we help other people? Right? So don't make it about the money. How can we help people and to do the damn thing? And how can
Mm-hmm.
you create a situation where you're both winning at the end?
Yeah.
That's going to go a long way instead of saying like, fuck you, I'm going to do my own thing. And then you fucking that network up. How can you create a winning situation for both of you? And if you can't, then you have to make a decision. Be smart,
Yeah.
be ethical. Like, don't. I'm for burning bridges. Just make sure the bridge is worth burning.
Well said.
Some bridges need to be burned
Yeah.
because you don't need to go back there. And that's what I did when
Yeah.
I left the gym. I burned a bridge, and it cost me. I learned a lot from it. I could have handled it better. It cost me a lot. It fucked my network for a couple years. I
Yeah.
handled it the wrong way. So, like, if you're gonna burn a bridge, do it the right way.
Yeah.
um, but I think just find a way to make it a win-win.
Yeah.
And I can see
Definitely.
like the wheels turning in your head, right? So, like, um, yeah, pull the trigger, bet on yourself,
Yeah.
right? That we talk about it all the time. Bet on you. It's because if it's not you that's going to do it, someone else will do it, and you'll be like, "Fuck, that was my idea."
Yeah. That's what's in the back of my mind literally every day.
Mm-hmm. What would be the proper way to burn a bridge? I don't know. Like when you end a bad relationship, right? You can either end it like an asshole or you can end it like on good terms. And sometimes there's
Yeah.
no good terms. Matt told me one time, you're always going to be the bad guy in someone's story, and you have to be okay with that. And that's always stuck in my head since he told me that. That blew my mind. Proper way is just to fucking match in some gasoline. No, yeah, just be a human. You have to remember, humans are humans, right? And if we can create a winning situation and continue to build relationships, that's going to help build our business. Don't let your ego get in the way. Not that there's anything wrong with your ego. The ego is important. I don't like the ego as the enemy. It's not the enemy, because if the ego didn't serve a purpose, then we wouldn't have one. So your ego is your friend. It's just sometimes it's selfish. What else? How's everybody else doing? Well, I will talk about my win-win strategy then for the social media. So the dilemma was that my social media account was movement, strength, and conditioning. So within the business that we're starting, we have chiropractic and passive modalities, so massage, chiropractic, and stretching. And then there's an active component, which is me. It's the therapeutic application of strength and conditioning and movement. The guy that's fronting the money felt that my posting was a conflict of interest for the business. We're also going to add a medical side, which is a nurse practitioner, which does like injections, hormone therapy, regenerative medicine. So if you're looking at this is almost like 3 separate businesses. And that's how I looked at it, was that the passive modalities was its own business and the active modalities was its own business. What I do is very different from what they do. So we came up with 2 social media channels. The one is where I will create the content that I want to create, which will in turn help build the brand and the business. Instead of me putting all that type of content on my personal page, I will now use it to create this side of the business, which is still needs to be created. So now it's a win-win for both of us, because it's a marketing strategy that's going to help build the active side of the business. And it also puts me at the front of becoming an expert in bridging the gap with the medical community as a strength coach, right? Strength coaches have egos, physical therapists have egos, chiropractors have egos, and all of us are fighting with each other about who's smarter. We need to work together. So this is how I created that win-win situation. So I can still create all that content, but I leverage it as it's marketing for the active side of our business. And I saw each thing as a different business. I drew him a diagram and pointed everything out, and you could see the light bulbs go off in his head, and he's like, this is awesome. Right? So just coming up, I sat on it for probably a week and a half before I was able to like come up with that idea. It's all I thought about. My wife was like, can you just shut up about this? But it consumed me, because I knew there was a way that this was going to be a work, and I felt my ego standing in the way, like, because when I got burned at the gym, I lost all of my intellectual property. Everything that gym has, I created. All the systems, the programs, the templates, everything. And when I burned that bridge, it was no longer mine. It was the gym's. I had articles on Elite FTS pulled because of it, because I was giving out like industry inside information on like throwing and jumping, which is silly. But I learned from that, right? So how can I create a win-win situation? I created a lose-lose situation when I burned that bridge. And to build this business and what we envision, I had to show this guy I was all in. By keeping my own personal account, it was showing I had 1 foot out. I had to show him I was all in, but I also get to do what I want to do. So it was kind of win-win. Yeah. Anything else from anybody? Questions, comments? How's training going? How's our bodies feeling? Anything we're struggling with? All right. Nobody's got anything. We're going to end it there. Appreciate y'all coming in. Yeah. Sean, no doctor talk tonight. There's no doctor talk. Yeah. Maybe we should do another one of those.
I just had to remind people that you're basically a doctor.
You can't tell me that because it's not good for my ego.
That's fine. Your ego's, you just said it's not your enemy.
Because when I talk to actual doctors, I'm like, Sean said I'm a doctor.
Yeah, tell him, shut the fuck up. Sean said I'm a doctor. It's fine.
Yeah. Cool. Steven, welcome to the group. Jason, I can't see your face, but I think you're new. I don't know everybody yet. But thanks everybody. Appreciate you. I'll see you in the Discord. Text me, call me. Josh, love you, man. We'll talk soon and later.
Appreciate it, man.
Later, buddy.